Blimey, Nigel. Settle down. This is going to take a while. Let's start with the good news. Dr. David Bullshit has now said that you signed up 5 members a minute during Reform's Action Day. And the cult, with an L, is going to need those new members because you keep losing councillors. Sadly, this councillor had to step down because they made a public nuisance of themselves during Armed Forces Day. One of your councillors has been charged with stalking somebody during the election period. Down in Cornwall, you've lost so many councillors that you're no longer the largest political party in the authority. Here's another one gone, whilst your flagship council, Kent, has lost another 2 councillors today. Kent County Council leader, suck it up or fuck off Lyndon, is not bothered at all though. Here she is on the Action Day talking to Dr. David Bullshit, saying how the trouble with other politicians is that they're grossly out of touch with the British public. That'll be the same Lyndon that writes for The Spectator articles such as "What I Learned Trying and Failing to Win an Election as a Tory Councillor." Or how about this autobiographical article that she wrote, which most of us can relate to, yeah? Should I buy a vineyard or shouldn't I? As it happens, Lyndon did buy one. In fact, I'm misrepresenting her a bit. She bought a property that was big enough that would allow her to plant her vineyard. And I sincerely hope that she's put a link to this article in her newsletter for all the constituents that were thinking of going to Tobago on their holiday but had let one shark attack put them off. I mean, for me personally, it was the price that I found a little bit disconcerting. But hey, good to know if I ever save up enough, the sharks are not anything to be worried about. Now, speaking of sharks, Nigel, back you come. I don't think there's been enough media coverage of this phenomenal interview that you did with Bloomberg. Like it was mentioned, wasn't it, that you called her love and it was quite derogatory and quite misogynistic. But this interview absolutely exposed you as the petulant, badly educated, arrogant, narcissistic, populist politician that you truly are. Unlike your usual puff pieces that are put out there by the right-wing media, the only puffing done here was you. You acknowledge that you're a person that can help change public opinion, or as we say, manipulate the vulnerable and exploit the poor. She asked if you were able to actually get into the details of things. Would you be able to work your way through the red boxes? You claimed you'd been doing that for years. But you hadn't, had you? Like the Brexit thing, a complete bloody disaster. You weren't over any of it. And every single press conference you hold, you always fall apart at the detail. And in a Trumpian move, claimed to be the only person in the country that had built up political movements with pen, paper and telephone. You seem to miss something quite big off that list. Potentially the help of some other people? Hi, Vlad. And when asked, would you be a unifier? You were quite clear. No, you wouldn't. We'd had enough of those. You were going to rule by division. But it was your discussion about the past that I found particularly interesting, how you were such a Thatcher fanboy. And whilst I've said this time and time again, it also exposed you as being really thick. Like, not just because you didn't go to college, but you absolutely have no critical thinking skills at all. The country's in an economic mess and you're going, now we need to get rid of all the regulation and just take some risks. All the work that Starmer's currently doing to try to get some growth back in the UK via EU sort of trade routes, now you're going to scrap all of that. But you're like a pseudo-intellectual, proud to say that you're reading books, but also showing that you have no grasp of anything. The church was too woke for you. You're going to sack Andrew Bailey from the Bank of England, which seemed to ring a bell with me from somewhere. And yes, you said that Putin was a bad dude, but you also then carried on by spouting more Putin talking points, which nicely segues into today's news, Nigel. Because just when I thought you couldn't get any lower, in a bid to stop us talking about you and the Russians, or maybe it was to stop us talking about the fraud case that your partner is involved in, the one that actually involves UKIP money, which you used to run. Or maybe it was to distract us from the fact that one of your members had been racist. Oh, sorry, wrong person. Welsh Senedd member Laura was of course racist before you took her on. Sarah Pushin has just come out as a right old racist since she's been a member of Parliament for Reform. So today, in a bid to stop the press talking about Russia or your stamp duty or the fraud that you potentially are involved in or the racism within your party, you decided to call a press conference to talk about the grooming gang inquiry. It was somewhat ironic, wasn't it, that you're going to meet with the Speaker of the House of Commons today to talk about your brilliant idea. I mean, it was a brilliant move. You're trying to say that it's nothing to do with politics. You just want to bring trust back to politics. In fact, you were so proud of your ridiculous idea that you were going to speak to the Speaker to see if everybody could come together. That would be the Speaker that just last week you disrespected when you sat in the spectators gallery because you were sulking because the Speaker wouldn't ask you to speak at PMQs. In fact, last week you were on strike as an MP. This week it's Parliament is the answer. You said it wasn't political. Except I'm really interested that it's only you and Kemi Badenoch have ever paraded a vulnerable survivor in front of the press. No other parties have ever done that, probably because they understand that these women are really vulnerable and it is our job as a society to protect them, not exploit them. Yet with a survivor at the side of you, you said Jess Phillips, who has made it her life's work to work with survivors and to try to get justice for them, you said she doesn't really care about them, she's just worried about getting into Parliament next time. That'll be in 4 years' time, Nigel, but you wanted to make that point today, didn't you? You tried to make out that Parliament could compel people to give evidence to some sort of committee, but that's a lie, isn't it, Nigel? Because that's what a statutory public inquiry does, which is what the Labour Party are trying to get together. But it takes time because the survivors are at the centre of the national inquiry. And it's really hard to get a consensus of opinion. Every survivor will have their interpretation of the truth, but as anybody that's worked in a trauma-informed way can tell you, which you clearly haven't, is that that truth will look very different because of the complexities of the mental health issues involved. The Labour Party seem to understand that, which is why they've taken a very softly approach, but you've decided to just go gun-ho and you're just going to sort it out seemingly in a couple of months. Which again shows you have no clue how much goes into an investigation. If you want to understand trauma-informed work, Nigel, nip over to my Substack because I've tried to explain it to you there. And I've also explained over there for you why what you did today was the most despicable thing I think you've ever done. And my God, that list is quite big. But my personal highlights, and by highlights I mean lowlights, were as follows. What about the bit when the reporter said, can you tell us how you two first met, i.e. you and the survivor? And you said no. And then laughed and made a joke. The joke you made was, let's keep our personal life out of it. Looked at the survivor, because that was the moment, wasn't it, to make a smutty innuendo. Or how about the part when the reporter said to you, do you think the Parliament should get involved with the Prince Andrew debacle? To which you said, no, it's fine. He's already lost his dukedom. Just let him go and live his life in the sun. So for clarity, you called a press conference saying that people that commit heinous crimes should be held to account. And you were the man to do it. And at the side of you was one of the survivors of those heinous crimes. And yet within the same press conference you said, don't worry about Prince Andrew, he can just go off and live his life. He's already been punished, he lost his dukedom. I'm going to go out on a limb here, Nigel, and say that you don't give a flying fuck about those survivors and you exploited that young woman today and you used her for political point scoring. Nobody is going to take up your suggestion because it's ludicrous. And the members of your cult with an L who, like you, have no critical thinking will think that it's because the establishment are afraid of you. Whereas I think the only people that truly should be afraid of you are the survivors who are being politically groomed and exploited by you. Good chat, as you were.